Hello and welcome back, Squirrel Nation. Today we're diving into the January patch notes. Note before we dive in that I'm only going to cover the item changes and the map changes. I know there's a lot of resources out there where people are already talking about the hero buff, nerfs, reworks, etc. In the comments, let me know if you want me to cover the hero changes, and if you do, then I will do that in a separate video. Just because there's so many changes, it would take me quite a bit of time, and I don't want to make the video too long. Anyways, with that said, let's dive into my review of the game mechanics, jungle item changes, and support item changes. Each section will cover the changes themselves, and then what I think the effects of those changes will be on Arena of Valor. Okay, to begin, game mechanics. So the changes are there's more gold available Dragon Lane than the DS and mid lane. The reason for that is they've added a stronger version of a siege minion that will give more gold and experience to the Dragon Lane only. The next change is there's a penalty for farming under your tower, so any minion that dies within the tower's radius, so that circle around the towers, will provide 10% less gold. The third change is the first wave will now grant a player level 2. So before, the way that it worked is if you cleared the wave, you still had to wait a certain amount of time to get level 2 because basically the wave itself didn't provide enough experience to get level 2. What happened is that you needed to wait, I'm not sure the timing, but I believe it was about 40 to 45 seconds for the experience you're just passively getting from the game to add on top of the wave experience itself to get level 2. So that's why you'll notice some of you would kill the wave, clear it really fast, but you still wouldn't be level 2, and then all of a sudden you would get it maybe when you're roaming or doing something else. So anyways, now when you clear the wave, you will get level 2. Fourth change is minion movement speed is increased by 25 at the 6, 10, 14, and 18 minute mark. So meaning at 18 minutes, the minion speed will be the 300 that it used to be, plus 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25, so it will actually be 400. The last change is that the dragon, or the enraged dragon and the dark slayer buffs have been increased to 120 seconds from 90 seconds. Okay, so those are the changes. Let's dive into what the effects I think those changes will have on the game. So there will be more gold available early game. Okay, and the main reason for that is that the change in the minion dragon lane, right? So you're going to have more gold from one of the minions dragon lane, and then overall in the game there will be more gold early because of the minion speed, right? So the amount of waves are still going to be the same, but they're going to get to lane sooner, which means you're going to be able to clear them faster. So the amount of game, or the amount of gold overall isn't going to be that different, but the speed at which you get that gold is going to be different. So the other thing is games will end faster because of this, right? And teams will snowball harder. So these two go together. My thinking behind that is a few things. So teams are going to snowball harder, which is going to result in games ending faster. And the reason I think they're going to snowball harder is because, one, if your team is creating a lot of pressure and you're causing the enemy to farm under tower, they're going to be creating a gold deficit, right? That 10% is really going to stack up as the game goes on. So if a team is ahead and you're having to play scared under your tower, you're going to fall more and more behind, right? Like what we see now is teams kind of turtle up if they fall behind. But now if you try to turtle up, it's actually, you're going to be getting punished for turtling up. So I think that is going to affect it a lot. And then there's a couple changes to the jungle that I think are also going to make games snowball much harder. But I'll cover that when we hit that point in the video. So the next prediction of mine is range heroes will be strongly encouraged, and especially marksman and dragon lane. So if we all think back to the reason that you tend to put certain types of heroes in the jungle, right? Or the reason that jungle marksmen were so meta and so strong for a long time until the developers really started to discourage people from doing it, it was because marksmen need gold and experience to scale up, and then they become beasts. right? So marksmen tend to be weaker early game, but then as their levels and as their gear scales, they become very, very strong. So once again, there's going to be more gold in the dragon lane than there is mid or DS lane. So teams are going to want to put marksmen in that lane, and then they're going to want to try their best to funnel gold onto that marksman. So that's why I think that is going to happen that way. The last, and this is I think the most important thing for people to understand, is for the side laners, and actually this really applies to all lanes, but mids already kind of have this, there is going to be a huge premium on wave clear and survivability. And what I mean by that is the side lanes, their weakness is that they are the longest lane, right? Mid is a safe lane because you can run back to the safety of your tower quite quickly, whereas the side lanes, if you overextend at all, you're probably going to die, right? You could even be on your side of the river on the side lanes and still die to a good ambush. So survivability, that's why it's going to be important, because people are going to be encouraged. The new penalty for farming under tower, that negative 10%, is going to encourage people to push out and farm outside their tower range, right? So that's why heroes with survivability are going to have an advantage, because they're going to be able to farm without the negative 10% gold and at the same time survive through ganks. The strong wave clear, the reason that's going to matter is kind of the opposite, is that you are going to want to push the wave onto your enemy's tower. There's a lot more benefit from it now. So basically, if you can clear quicker than your enemy, they're going to have two choices. They're going to have to stand outside their tower range so that the minions don't make it in, and then they're tanking damage from the minions. And early game, that damage can add up quite a bit. And if they don't do that, they're going to get that negative 10% penalty. So wave clear is going to really affect the gold and the positioning that heroes have to take. So one really good example mid would be Raz, right? Raz, I don't know how you're supposed to say it anyways. Raz is going to have a lot of trouble because as a mid laner, his clear is very weak, whereas most mid laners have extremely strong wave clear. So what's always going to be happening to him early game now is he doesn't want to suffer the penalty from that negative 10% for under tower, so he's going to basically have to tank the minions outside his tower range, which is going to let him take damage, and it's also going to make him very vulnerable to poke damage from other enemy mid laners. So I think heroes like Raz are going to have a lot of issue coming up in this because of these changes. So anyways, that's enough for the game mechanics. Let's move on to the jungle item changes. So 4 changes. First, the stacks start before the item is bought. This is a major change. I may be misinterpreting the patch notes, but I'm pretty sure my interpretation is correct, which is that when you kill minions, even before you have your tier 2 or tier 3 item, which requires stacks, you will actually, in the background, be getting stacks. So you won't actually get the attack benefit till you buy the tier 2 or tier 3 item, but the game will track how many stacks you have. So as an example, after first clear, traditionally, after first clear, a jungler would have 1 stack, because they'd buy tier 2 item after they kill the second buff, and then they'd have one last jungle monster to kill, which would be their first stack on that item, okay? With this change, what is going to happen is they're actually going to have 6 stacks after their first clear, because the first 3 for whatever side they start on, the next 3 from the other side of their jungle, so they're going to add up to 6 that they will have as soon as they buy their tier 2 item. So that is a major change. That is going to be a buff to junglers, because even though they've nerfed the amount of attack or the amount of damage, let's say, because it's also ability power on some of the items, but even though they've nerfed the amount each stack is worth, the fact that you're going to have 6 stacks as opposed to 1 is going to actually be a significant buff to junglers. So anyways, the next second change is stacks cap up from 15 to 30. So basically, the tier 2 items are going to actually cap at 20 stacks, and then your tier 3 will go all the way up to 30. So that's also the reason they're doing that is because, and this goes to the 3rd and 4th point, is they're nerfing the tier 2 at max stack. So if you look at Mr. Stabby, for instance, right, you're only going to get 2 attack as opposed to 3 attack per stack. But at the same time, you're going to get 20 stacks as opposed to 15, right? So Mr. Stabby at tier 2 after the patch is going to provide 40 attack damage at max stacks, whereas he used to provide 3 times 15, which is 45 AD at max stacks, okay? So the tier 2 items across the board are nerfed at max stacks, right? Tier 3 items, though, are buffed, because now you do that, you multiply your 2 times the 30, so now from your tier 3, your Soul Reaver, you're getting 60 attack damage, right? Whereas you used to get 15 times 3, so 45. So you're actually getting a whole nother 15 attack damage at max stacks. Okay, so now the effects of the change. So jungle damage buffed early game, I already kind of covered that, is you're going to have 6 stacks as opposed to 1, so you're just going to have quite a bit higher damage. Invade time will hurt junglers a lot more. Okay, the reason I am saying that is because if you, let's say I invade the enemy's jungle and I steal their buff and I steal 2 of the minions, right? Okay, well, not only have I hurt their golden experience, which I used to do, even in the current version, but now I'm hurting their stacks. That's 3 less stacks that their jungler has. So say their jungler is going to use Mr. Stabby, then he's going to have 6 less AD. So not only did I steal gold and steal experience from him, I also stole his attack damage and his scaling of his item, okay? Which is going to mean he's also going to clear things slower, he's going to be less of a threat to gank, and the list goes on and on. So anyways, invades are going to hurt junglers a lot more than they currently do. Junglers will build their tier 3 always. With the changes, I can't see somebody giving up the tier 3 benefits of the jungle item because they have made it so much stronger for the amount of gold. Because from everything that I saw, the gold, the cost of tier 2 and tier 3 items isn't going to change. So for that 1,000 gold between your tier 2 and tier 3 items, I just can't see a justification for not buying the tier 3 item because of how much they have been buffed. Okay, only 1 punish will be taken per team. So this basically applies to the Darkslayer lane. You'll see some Darkslayers take punish, and even some supports will take punish like a Crest, right? I don't think this is going to happen anymore because the fact that the tier 2 has been nerfed, right? And if you don't have stacks, you're really going to be hurting. So the problem with taking a jungle item as a DS laner was always that you need to get stacks on it, and until you do, you're actually going to be behind the enemy DS laner unless they also bought a jungle item. Okay, so that problem is actually going to be enhanced in after the update. The other thing is that with 30 stacks being the max, that is going to be extremely hard for 2 people to max stack in the game after the patch, right? So think about it this way. It used to be 15 max for the jungle and then 15 for DS. As a total, the team just needed 30 stacks to get 2 jungle items max. But now if you want to max 2 people's jungle items, it's going to be 30 plus 30. You're going to need 60 stacks. That is a crazy high number, and I just don't see it happening. Okay, junglers will keep their jungle item late game. This is also because of the buff to the jungle item. Now they are going to, and I'm sorry for the background noise, the downside of living in a big city. Anyways, so the junglers are going to keep the item because they're just worth more now, and the stats that they give are better, right? So super late game, a lot of junglers, you'll sell it and you'll buy some very valuable item that's giving you better stats. Like Blade of Eternity or something like that, right? But now with how the stack change, those jungle items are going to be really beefy, and it's going to be a much harder decision of if you're going to sell the item. You wouldn't sell the jungle tier 3 item just to get more stats, more raw stats, right? The only time I could see people selling it is for actual utility. So they want that revive from Blade of Eternity, something like that. They need more armor pierce, okay? Something like that. But they're not just going to sell the item because its stats are not good, which is mainly why junglers sold the item before. Okay, anyways, moving on to support items. The changes, they normalize the stats. And what I mean by that is if you look at the tier 1, there's 2 tier 1, the Windstone and the Waterstone. Both of them have the same stats now. They have a little bit of regen, and they have 5% movement speed, okay? And then when you look at the tier 2, tier 3, what they've done is they've normalized the stats. So now all the items have 150 armor at the tier 2, right? all of them have 5% movement speed. So that's what I mean by normalized. They've basically given the same stats to all the items, right? There is a slight variance as you move up the tiers because some of them are going to be more mana regen, some of them will have cooldown, right? So there's little differences like that, but overall they've normalized items to where you're not going to buy a certain item just because it has better stats, which was the case pre-patch. So the current version of AoV, the reason that people don't buy any of the other support items is because the stats are just not that good. Okay, so anyways, the effects of the change. All support items are now viable, which I was just discussing. Supports now are going to choose the item based more on the passive and the active skills than they are for the stats. So the stats are basically the same. Or they're very close now. So now when I'm a support, I'm going to be looking at the enemy team comp, looking at my team comp, and I'm actually going to buy the item that I think best suits my team. Two items that I think really fall into this category are the Tide Caller's Mark and the Purifying Bracers. Tide Callers I think is going to be just much more popular in general because it gives you that effect very similar to Aggies where your teammates do more damage and they take less damage, okay? And now with the stats being equal to the wins, or sorry, not the win zone, but the tier 3 of, right? It's that buff is going to be very desirable, and I can see a lot of situations where people are going to want it. Furthermore, the Tide Caller starts from the Water Stone. The Water Stone's passive, they also changed. So it used to be that every 30 seconds you would get a stack. Okay, and you would get a max of 2 stacks. Okay, so it would take you a minute to get 2 stacks, and then if you were around an enemy's death or a minion's death, then you would give bonus gold and experience to your teammate. Okay, well they changed it because now you have 3 stacks, so you can save stacks for a minute and a half, which gives you more time to roam, which was a problem when it was only 1 minute. So you have more time to roam, you have 3 stacks, and then also they've doubled the gold, so now you're getting 30 gold and additional experience, and also it's to you and your teammate, okay? So let's say I'm support and I roam, I'm doing stuff, my own thing, and then let's say I go to Dragon side to help them clear the wave. I help them clear. What's gonna happen is I come to Dragon lane with, let's say, 3 stacks. We clear the wave, all 3 stacks are gonna trigger, okay? And then me and the Dragon laner are going to get 30 gold apiece and extra damage. So actually we're going to end up getting 90 gold apiece, right? So that's 180 gold that I'm going to get. So I could roam for a minute and a half, come back to Dragon lane, and I'm going to give them 180 gold, get myself 180 gold. So I just see that being really strong and something I don't think people are going to pass up. Because, yeah, just that, I think that's enough said on that. Purifying Bracers, you are getting Chognar's ultimate just on the item, right? Basically what it's going to do is it used to only remove CC from one teammate, which one made it kind of hard to use because you need to use like avatar targeting to target the teammate you want to use, and so there's no mess ups. So that was an issue, and then now it simply removes CC on all teammates, right? That is going to be amazing against CC comps. So this is going to hurt people like Alistair, Aram, right? Because people will just start simply running this item. They don't need to have a Chognar to counter these certain heroes now, but they can the support can simply buy the Purifying Bracers and they can just cleanse that CC. So anyways, that is it for today's video. In the comments, please let me know if there's anything else in future patch notes or on this patch note that you would like me to cover. Once again, mainly I'm covering the items and the map mechanics because I feel that hero stuff are talked about a lot, but at the same time, I'm here for you guys. If you want me to cover hero stuff, I can give you my thoughts and opinions on a hero by hero basis, and I can easily do that in a video later this week. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and as always, take care and happy ranking.